Hello and welcome again, respected dignitaries on the dais, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. A very, very good afternoon. Uh, Apologies for not having the hall full because, it is a little bit of a learning even for us because we did not spread the information too far. We thought the committed set of students are going to reach out and attend the event. We expected more than 100 to be here. Maybe it is due to the weather or otherwise they've not joined us. So it gives you an opportunity to become an ambassador and promote the event. Okay. So now we are going to know all of you by your names and you're going to help us to strengthen this message of Youth Climate Conclave further. So all of you, a very, very warm welcome to the launch of Youth Climate Conclave Edition 4. Climate change, as you all know, is a concern and is likely to pose long-term impacts on the planet. Youth have an important role to play in dealing with this issue, and they need to be encouraged to be brought out right in the forefront to help us find solutions. Youth Climate Conclave is just not about solution search. It is also about capacity building, transparency of actions, recognition of principles of equity, understanding of common but differentiated responsibilities, climate justice, and sustainable lifestyles. Each word that I now mentioned has a big bibliography behind it. So when you are a part of Youth Climate Conclave, we automatically expect you to be well versed with these keywords which are going to make a difference. Knowledge is power, as you all know. And knowledge is also the guiding principle behind Youth Climate Conclave. We started this initiative in the year 2019, and right now we are in the 4th edition, and we really survived and did very well in spite of the COVID pandemic. We connected with each other, we networked with each other, and as I again said, that problem became as an opportunity, and we were able to connect many, many more. With these words, I now invite Ambassador Manjeet Puri, distinguished fellow TERI, to welcome our young guests and dignitaries to the conclave. Over to you, sir.
Livleen, thank you very much. You know, one of the advantages of standing at this podium, which is on one side of the stage, is that the lights aren't shining on you. So they're now shining on the dignitaries here. So please welcome them all. His Excellency Ambassador Ugo Astuto, the Ambassador of the European Union, and not just our partners. Let me say something to you right at the beginning. An entity, a coming together of 27 countries which have been in the forefront of getting all of us, A, to understand, B, to internalize, and C, to act on climate change. Ambassador Astuto, you represent that geography, that coming together of countries who not only have shown great leadership in terms of peace, development, coming together of the world, but in the areas of sustainability and climate change, leadership. We appreciate that. We are partners, and we look forward to taking this forward this time around with the next generation. And thank you very much for having them on board. I am deeply appreciative of that. Friends, let me also say something else. We are all here as part of a global partnership. So I mentioned to you the European Union, its leadership, but frankly speaking, when we look at global partnerships, when we see what can we do together, and as many of us, as many people, as many countries, you would agree with me that the one institutional name that comes to your mind is the United Nations. Madam, I'm delighted to welcome someone from UNICEF. You know, UNICEF is that wonderful body created at the United Nations, which of course looks at the issues dealing with young people. But actually, it's the body which looks after things which are totally connected with the future and future generations. And so I am particularly happy that for the Youth Conclave this time, Livleen, we have the European Union with its leadership and we have UNICEF with us. And you know, although I'm standing here representing TERI, as is Livleen out here, and we are very happy to welcome you as one of India's oldest and leading institutions involved with sustainability, energy, climate action. Let me tell you, much of all this would not be possible had it not been for the active engagement of the Government of India under the leadership of the Prime Minister, who himself has been recognized as a great climate champion. Mrs. Ruchika Dhral, I want to say thank you. She represents the government, but it's a huge responsibility. And the Ministry of Environment, which is the nodal point for climate action. In fact, the ministry was renamed some time back. And you can understand the importance that India, as a country, as a national government, attaches to climate change by actually renaming a ministry of the government and including climate change in its fundamental objective. Great welcome to you. And sir, I haven't forgotten you. Let me tell you, I haven't forgotten you for the very simple reason. As we entered inside, the most beautiful thing that we saw was what either the eye or the replication of the eye, the other focal lens could see. And so I'm absolutely delighted here to welcome in our midst Mr. Ashish Bhattacharya, who's a senior associate of the Delhi Photography Club. Sir, I hope you also liked some of the things that the young people did. I was particularly struck with one pose. And I told the ambassador, do you recognize what it is? He wanted to be polite. He said, no. He possibly thought it was somebody with a muddy hand, but, you know, a very nice little flower in the hand. I told him it isn't that. It's that most beautiful thing, creativity, and creativity by people, ordinary people from this lovely country, especially women. It's henna, it's mehndi, all of which symbolizes something absolutely beautiful. Now I'm delighted. I walked around and we saw that there were people from 3 of Delhi's most prestigious institutions. I don't want to start by naming who's more prestigious than the other, but I have to say that TERI School of Advanced Studies leads. That you will allow me to say. You know, you guys can compete. They have to be a class apart simply because they're part of the host. But absolutely delighted to have the Al Singh College and LSR in our midst, both institutions which have done so much for India and modern India, post 1947 India, in terms of their alumni, and I have no doubt in terms of what each and every one of you, in yourselves as climate ambassadors, as those who will symbolize the new change. India has taken on some of the most onerous challenges on sustainability, on climate change, but it requires every one of you to act. Believe me, it isn't for nothing that we have the Prime Minister talking about life, lifestyles and environment. And believe me, while we can tell NTPC to shut down a thermal power station or somebody else to look at green hydrogen, if each and every one of us will not change, if each and every one of us will not be conscious of sustainability, if each and every one of us will not know that we have one planet and we owe it to ourselves and our successive generations to ensure that the planet is lively, lives on, and is a vibrant entity, then we wouldn't be doing anything. And in any case, all those goals will remain goals on paper. I don't want to say more. I want to congratulate all those who did those lovely photographs. I want to congratulate all of you. And I want to say a very big thank you to my colleagues, Livleen Kalo and her team, and Sonal, who's put all this together, from TERI, the EU's delegation, and others who've been involved in this absolutely wonderful idea. We participated in this. I had the privilege last year of participating in this conclave in a virtual manner. That was great. It allowed us to reach a few thousand people all over the place. But there is no substitute for being there, looking at the other in the eye, and committing yourself to do things for the planet. Thank you and wish you all the best.
Thank you, sir, for the motivational words. Uh, Youth Climate Conclave is a very, very beautiful experience for all of us, and we have almost internalized all the learnings over the years. But before we move on to YCC, please, I also welcome the students who have joined us now. May I first request Ambassador Manjeet Puri to formally welcome our guests by handing over saplings of Schefflera, a tropical plant which is actually an umbrella plant and a great office plant. The beauty of this plant is that it is a natural air freshener and detoxifier. So another learning for all of us now, let's try and find out if we can have more of Scheffleras in our workplaces and make the internal indoor quality better. So.
Excellent. Sir, please. That's the word. Sir, yes, sir. Sir, that's it. Sir, join us, please. Yes. Sir, do you mind if I do the lady? Sir, sir, please. Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you. And sir, we are. Yes, sir. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Ambassador Puri, sir. Thank you, dignitaries. Please have your seat. YCC was also a seed that was planted with care by the delegation of European Union to India in 2019. Youth participants have received several opportunities to interact and discuss over the years with climate stalwarts, and all this has been possible by the forever encouraging and positive support received from His Excellency Hugo Estuto. Sir, if you remember, in 2019, October 4th, it was your first official interaction with the public in India, and you started with YCC. I hope we have given you beautiful memories to take back with you. And in the process, we have also learned a lot by the opportunities you have given to the youth over the experiences of YCC. Thank you so much for being with us. And now I request you to share your views about the conclave and otherwise with the youth present today. Over to you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for coming. It's a pleasure to be here with you among friends, and Ambassador Manjeet Puri, went from TERI for the Ministry of the Environment. As you said, yes, this was my first public event 3 years ago. Then for the past couple of years, we couldn't do it in person because of COVID. Now I'm glad to be here again with you all in person. And I think COVID has also taught us a few lessons when it comes to global challenges. So we need to come together. We need to act in a spirit of solidarity. We need to show cohesion and consistency. Otherwise, we cannot believe that we will survive the plight of our neighbor. We can be saved or damned, but together. When it comes to climate change, I think the facts are pretty plain for all to see. The last IPCC report was published not so long ago. And it put it very clearly, very starkly. It was another clarion call sounded to the international community. Either we act now, or it will be too late. So the science has given us a very clear message. We do not have the luxury simply of waiting and continue to debate about possible solutions. Already, as of today, some of the consequences of climate change are probably irreversible. We see extreme weather events, and we see a rise in sea levels. The most vulnerable countries, particularly in the south of the world, are going to see momentous change that will make life and livelihood difficult in the years to come. So we have to change mode. We now need to act together. And the good news is that we have the instrument. We know what can be done. The commitments taken in Paris a few years ago need to be now fully implemented. COP27 is going to happen very soon, as you know, in Egypt, in Sharm el-Sheikh. Well, that's a moment where, again, we need to be serious, we need to be ambitious, and we need to be forthcoming in our commitments. When it comes to the European Union now, the fight against climate change and biodiversity loss is definitely a major priority, which has been mainstreamed in practically all of our activities. Ambassador Manjeet Puri was so kind as to recall that earlier on. What we call the Green Deal. The Green Deal means changing the very paradigm of our economies and societies. It's about abandoning unsustainable patterns of consumption and production. It's about achieving growth through the protection of the environment and not at the expense of the environment. We have set ourselves pretty clear targets that we want to be a climate neutral continent by 2030. And we have been pioneers in setting these into law. So now it's not just a vague aspiration. We have legal commitments and we have a clear roadmap, what we call Fit for 55. So we need to reduce by 55% our emissions by 2030. It's not going to be easy. It's a serious challenge. Made all the more complicated by the current situation in Europe. I'm sure you're all following the news, the Russian aggression, unprovoked and unjustified aggression against Ukraine, against a peaceful neighbor, and it's a weaponization now of the prices of food and the prices of energy is making it all the more difficult to cope with the transition. But it has actually made it even firmer, our commitment to shift to renewables and to wean ourselves off fossil fuels. And already, in terms, for instance, of dependency of pipeline gas, in February, we were dependent from Russian pipeline gas for 40% of our needs. Today, it's less than 9%. So you see what sort of change is needed and what sort of change is happening. That's for the European Union, but we need to work together on this. And I'm glad to say that with India, we find a like-minded path. I think we start from the same proposition, which is we need to act together and swiftly. And that's why the announcement made by Prime Minister Modi at the last COP was so important, about setting a target for 2070 for India to be carbon neutral, and a very ambitious, massive investment in renewables. I think this announcement helped quite a lot in focusing the minds of all participants in COP26, and in making it clear that we need to respect the target set in Paris. We cannot go beyond a 1% increase in global warming. If we do, the consequences will be of extreme magnitude. And who will suffer these consequences? Well, I'm sorry to say you will, the youth. That's why we need, particularly among the youth, a growing awareness of the problem, of the challenge, and of the opportunities also, because a country such as India can have an added value, can have a comparative advantage with respect to other economies by putting in place solutions which are greener, digital, and resilient. A process which is already happening. We see the awareness growing in India. We see the missions put in place. Not so long ago, we had here visiting Delhi our Commissioner for Energy, and together with Edwin, we organized here in Delhi a workshop on hydrogen. Hydrogen also, green hydrogen offers great opportunities. In any case, we will have to, the transition from fossil fuels to greener sources of energy will require a variety of sources. It's going to be a mix. We don't have a silver bullet, one single alternative. So it's going to be solar, it's going to be wind, it's going to be hydrogen, biomass, nuclear. But what we clearly need to do together is to set a clear direction, clear goals, and these goals must be binding and must be collective. And mitigation needs to go hand in hand with adaptation, because as I mentioned earlier, unfortunately, some of the consequences of climate change are in any case going to be here with us for good. So we need to help, particularly those most vulnerable to these consequences. We need also to address the need for finance and for transfer of technologies, and that will also be part of the conversation and discussion in Sharm el-Sheikh very soon. So the role of the youth is central. I'm glad to see you here. My recommendation for you is to be aware and to be active. We need your lobbying. We see in Europe a great movement which is developing. You all have heard about the name of Greta Thunberg, but she's one among many in the youth who try to advocate a more active role of government and stakeholders, because we are all in the same boat, but still, you will have a longer trajectory to travel than others. So your ownership of the process is extremely important. So let me close here, and again repeat: we need to be ambitious. We need to take action. We need to do that for the sake, not so much of our planet. Our planet will survive in any case, but for us, for mankind.
Thank you, sir, for your encouraging words. And yes, we should take note of what has been told to us. We have to be active, and we need to record and react to situations in a knowledgeable and positive manner. So with this, we now move on to the next activity of today's program. We have a special video message being shared by His Excellency Vincenzo Di Luca, Ambassador of Italy, which is going to be played to you now. Unfortunately, he could not join us in person, but Embassy of Italy has also worked very closely and is again one of the major spin-offs that came out of the program. And last year at the pre-COP26 session, there was a special declaration that was prepared by Indian youth that was taken forward by them. So with this context, we now have the message. I'll request the IT help to please screen the message.
Dear distinguished speaker, dear colleagues, dear young people, dear all, it's my pleasure to address the inaugural session of the launch of the 4th edition of Youth Climate Conclave, organized by the Delegation of the European Union to India, together with TERI, GIZ, India, and the Council on Energy, Environment and Water. 2021 has highly drawn the attention on climate change issue in the global agenda. COP26 not only achieved some positive results on the road towards the carbon neutrality, it showcased, especially over the pre-COP26 days, the younger generation expect to be today more than ever at the center of this decision-making process of the climate agenda. Just 1 year ago, Italy hosted the event Youth for Climate, driving ambition with 400 young participants coming from 186 countries all over the world. It was able to promote the engagement of the young generation in the decision-making process, making young people responsible and recognize them as key players in climate action, along with civil society, business community, academic world, and regional institutions. It has been a successful event marking the attempt to establish an effective intergenerational dialogue on climate issues. 2022 should have undoubtedly constituted the testing ground in order to necessarily follow up the encouraging achievement of COP26 on the road to next COP27. Of course, developments occurred over the last months on the global scenario risk moving the attention to other issues, such as energy security. We must avoid that this jeopardizes the momentum on the climate agenda, clear the COP by 26, and hopefully COP27 will be able to cover up. In this process, Italy, we are convinced that the young people must play an important role. For this reason, we stress the importance of the involvement of non-state actors such as youth in the negotiation process on climate change on the occasion of Youth for Climate Powering Action, the Italian government organized with UNDP New York in conjunction with the General Assembly of the United Nations. It aims to give continuity to the initiative, renewing ambition expressed in the Youth for Climate Manifesto adopted in Milan. Over the last year, as Italy, we have been very sensitive as far as the relationship between people and planet is concerned. We always deemed crucial creating a dialogue between institutions and youth in the climate agenda. We will continue to do it. I'm so glad that such initiatives like Youth Climate Conclave keep focusing to the spotlight of the issue, and I thank the European Delegation and TERI for having invited me for the opening day. I wish you a successful conclave and all the best to the young participants. Dear distinguished speakers, dear colleagues, dear young people, dear all, it's my pleasure to address the inaugural session of the launch of the fourth edition of Youth Climate Conclave, organized by the Delegation.
We have a repeat here. Please stall the video. So that was a special message from His Excellency Ambassador of Italy, Vincenzo De Luca. So now we move on to the next important section of today's program. Over the years, you know, in YCC, we have seen very valuable partnerships being formed and strengthened. And this year, we have this new association, which is, of course, a feather in the cap of YCC, endorsement and taken by UNICEF. We have Ms. Maria Brockenschen, Chief of WASH Climate and Environment Program at UNICEF India with us today. And we will see a lot of work that we will do in collaboration with UNICEF in YCC Edition 4. So with these words, I welcome you, ma'am, to please address and let us know what needs to be done.
Good afternoon, everyone. Respected dignitaries on the dais, and of course, all the youth here in the room. So glad to see you here today, and very happy to be associated as UNICEF India for the first time with the Climate Youth Conclave. So UNICEF works a lot with children, youth, and adolescents in India. We also work a lot on climate change. In India, currently, we have globally the largest youth population. So that means that more than 50% of India's population is below the age of 25. This is a fact that I didn't know until last week, actually, even though I've been here for 4.5 years already. So if you look at the average age of the Indians in 2020, it was 29. Looking at China, it's 37, and Japan, 48. So India is a very young country, and there's a lot of power for the youth to also take action. And I think that's why we're all here today and hopefully speaking with the youth and listening to the youth. At the same time, India is also very vulnerable to climate change and climate risks. UNICEF did a climate risk index in 2021, and India ranks 26th out of the 163 countries that were assessed. So that means that a large amount of the 50% of the population in India is actually at risk of climate change. Looking at climate-related disasters, we see that a lot of the services, water, sanitation, schooling, but also healthcare, nutrition services are affected in these disasters. For example, maybe you remember Cyclone Fani in 2019 in Orissa. More than 6,700 schools were damaged by that one cyclone. And this was a cyclone that was not seen for such a long, long time. So we see all this type of disasters affecting our daily lives more and more, and these disasters become more frequent. What are the impacts of climate change? Climate change was also put last year by scientists and a joint statement in more than 200 medical journals. It was put as the greatest threat to global public health, even bigger than COVID. This was at the peak of COVID. So even then, scientists put climate change as the biggest global threat, and I think this is very significant. So it's time that we take climate change serious. So this is what the science says, but what do the youth say? So UNICEF did a study, and we asked youth in India, can you explain what is climate change? And while 80% of youth say that they have learned about climate change in school at one point in time, 64% of you said we can't really explain what it is and what it means. So that means we need to unpack this whole concept of climate change and bring it in contextualized information that is accessible and understandable for the youth here in the room and in the country. We also asked, are you worried about climate change? And 70% of the youth said, yes, we're very worried. But 29% said, children are the ones that should take the most prominent action. Of course, they mentioned government, their teachers, their families, but 29% said, yes, we are the ones who need to take action. And I found it very powerful, and I'm glad to see so many youth here in the room today that feel the same. So following that, we asked, so what are you already doing? For example, are you closing your tap while you're brushing the teeth? 80% yes. 80% said, yes, that's what we do. Are you taking a 1-bucket bath? 59% said, yes, that's what we do. Have you used single-use plastic in the last 5 days? 40% said yes. So still, while we see there is action taken already of things that we can do to improve the environment and combat the climate change, still there is more that we can do. So what does UNICEF believe that we should be doing about climate change? First of all, we want to ensure that children are the focus of all climate and environmental strategies. Children are at the center stage. Children and youth are often not considered when we discuss plans and policies, whereas 50% of the population in India is youth, right? So they should be part and parcel whenever we develop such strategies. And I'm actually very happy to give the example of India, how the Mission Life, I hope you've heard of Mission Life, where youth actually plays an important role, and youth action on climate change plays a central stage in that mission as well. The second approach for UNICEF is to empower children as agents of change and make them part of the decision-making process. Then, of course, we also have to ensure that youth is protected from the impacts of climate change. So we call that climate change adaptation. And that we also, at the same time, work on reducing the emissions and the pollution, climate change mitigation. So what does that all mean in practice? UNICEF at the national and at the state level has set up a huge network of children and youth that we reach through a digital outreach platform where we can discuss issues around climate change. And we can give feedback also. We can get in dialogue with the youth directly. 1.5 million youth are already connected. But of course, there is a scope to involve each and every youth here in India. Then there's also a lot of direct engagement with youth to take more climate actions. For example, cleanup drives, bicycle marathons, specific actions that youth can volunteer to take to save water or to recharge water. But we're also facilitating discussions between youth and climate scientists, between youth and members of parliament, to ensure that youth have a voice. And last year, we have ensured that a few youth representatives from India were part of COP26, and we are working to do the same for COP27. At the same time, I mentioned earlier already, it's so important that youth learn about climate and environment in school, but also that that information is understandable for them. So we're working together with the Ministry of Education to see how we can influence the environmental curriculum to ensure that climate change is included in that curriculum. We're also launching a state level, or it's already launched a state level climate curriculum in Maharashtra, and we're training 10,000 teachers on this curriculum. And there's a lot of potential to scale up to other states as well. Lastly, we believe that youth have an important role to play in the green economy. And for that, it's important that youth understand what are the potentials for them What are the green skills that they can invest in? What should they know to prepare for such a green and sustainable livelihood after school and after college? So we're having a green job series since last year. Tomorrow is the second edition. So in case anyone is interested to take a green livelihood opportunity going forward, or if you just want to know more, you're most welcome to join this initiative. So just a few examples of what we can do as a community. You know, this is development partners, but of course, together with the government, with the EU, with all the youth here in the room, the scientists, everyone to come together to make a change for youth. And I really hope to hear more from the rest of the speakers today, but also the youth and the panelists later to see what actions they are looking to take going forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maria. That was wonderful. Two important things to take away from what you shared with us was science popularization and climate change curriculum. So with these two, of course, all of you are mostly, I do not see any school children today, but Youth Climate Conclave is also going to reach out to the school children. So maybe you can become ambassadors and you can strengthen this message of the need for this climate curriculum and how it can be translated in a popular style for every child to understand. So we are going to work towards it. That's a commitment and promise from us. Let's see how we do it from now on. So now I would invite Ms. Ruchika Droll, Deputy Secretary, Climate Change Division, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, to share her views about the forum and about climate change with all of us. Ma'am, over the years, we have seen very good presence of the ministry, and we have had participation from all levels, including the Union Minister himself. So the youth are really looking forward to hearing from you and how we can connect with you further with the ministry through the Eco Club movements and otherwise as we take the message forward. Over to you, ma'am.
Youth is the pollen that blows through the sky and does not ask why. These were the words that were said by Stephen Vincent Bennett. That is the reason there cannot be a better way to take forward any movement than engaging with the youth. So with these words, a very good afternoon to everyone present here, the dignitaries on the dais, and the young and lively faces representing the youth of the country today. We welcome you all on behalf of Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. As you all know, and it has already been reiterated by my fellow speakers, that the issue of climate change has already been very well established by the science. It has been recognized by the communities and countries across the world. Ambassador has already highlighted the science behind the climate change and also the kind of commitments that the countries and communities have taken to take climate action and help the world take forward this fight against the global cause of climate change. And India especially has a very unique opportunity because we have a large population of young people, which is close to 600 million amongst us, who can take forward this initiative and also help the government and the world achieve the targets that have been set by the various agencies and the government. India has always had a very special focus on the development of the youth through different ministries, specifically through the Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports. The National Day, the National Youth Day, is celebrated on the birth anniversary of Vivekanand, that is on 12th January. Vivekanand ji always believed in the power of the youth, and he felt that the true strength of the country lies in the people of the country and also their capabilities. And for the youth, he specifically said that my faith is in the younger generation, the modern generation. They will work out the whole problem like lions. So going ahead with the spirit that has been given by our forefathers, we have always been engaging with the youth, and there are a lot of expectations that are there on your shoulders. The Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change at the central level has always been engaging with the youth through various schemes, be it the National Green Corps, which is the major initiative of the ministry for creating environmental awareness amongst the younger generation and build a cadre of young children who work towards the environmental conservation and sustainable development. On this line only, with the unique partnerships with our fellow institutions, the state governments, ministry has been taking ahead several other initiatives like establishment of eco clubs for the eco clubs within the schools to increase the awareness and increase the engagement of the school going children, and to give them a in-depth understanding of the environmental issues and what role they can play in their own spaces. As of today, there are about 1 lakh eco clubs across the country functioning in different schools. And they have been one of the largest conservative groups of the country. And more eco clubs are expected to come up going forward. And as my colleague from UNICEF has already mentioned that as India, a country, we have been taking youth representatives in our delegation to international events like COP, which are held annually under the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. And we are going to have the COP 27 in the month of November 2022 next month in Egypt. So we look forward to taking the youth or the young delegates along with the Indian delegation this year also. And with the strategic partnership with the EU, that is under the project for strategic partnership for implementation of Paris Agreement, which is funded by European Union and the German Federal Ministry. MOEFCC is also supporting establishment of the climate change learning labs across the country. One of the first labs that was established under this program was in the Bihar Zoo, which was inaugurated somewhere in the month of July 2022. And we look forward to having more such labs to give people some hands-on experience on the issues that we are facing and the kind of solutions that we expect from the general people. And under the same program, ministry has been supporting the organization of Youth Climate Conclave since 2019. And GIZ, CEEW, TERI have been very strong partners with the ministry in turning this concept into reality. And we also look forward to spreading out the awareness about this conclave and also ensuring larger outreach through our National Green Corps. And here I would also want to highlight that at COP26 in Glasgow, our Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister Mr. Narendra Modi, had given a global call for the lifestyle for environment that is life. It basically aims at putting individual behavior at the forefront of climate action. It has actually helped us understand what kind of roles, or it has actually helped us think what kind of roles each one of us can play in our day-to-day lives to be able to contribute in the global action. It basically envisions the replacement of the use and dispose kind of culture to a circular economy kind of culture, which can be done through a mindful and deliberate utilization of any resource that we have in hand. And youth can be very actively involved in adoption and promotion of a climate friendly behavior within the communities and contributing to this global movement of life. This is the national initiative as of now, but our vision is to take it to the global stage, and we have been trying to do that through different forums and making it a cross-cutting themes through various action that India is spearheading. The basic objective of this youth climate conclave is to engage youth in climate action through various creative activities, which will include photography, blog writing, short videos, video competitions, etc. So this will kind of help or motivate the youth to at least think through the problem and come out with the most innovative ideas that you might have based on your experiences, your backgrounds, your education. So we really expect the youth to be as innovative as possible. And as our colleagues have already mentioned, that this is the fourth version or the fourth issue of the Youth Climate Conclave that we are going to have. We are happy. I'm happy to note that this particular year, the fourth issue will be in a physical mode in Delhi. So I'm sure all of you are equally excited as we are in organizing this conclave and making it a huge success. The ministry will be more than happy to be involved in the development of the agenda and the planning for the conclave, and we will expect inputs from various experts to be taken into consideration while designing or executing this conclave. And with these words, I wish a very all the best to the project team, the participants, and all our partners who are working hard to be able to make this a successful event. And we look forward to more opportunities to partner with the younger generation of the country on issues related to climate change. Thank you very much for having me here to be part of this kickoff event for the Youth Climate Conclave. And it is absolutely my pleasure to be amongst you all. And we hope to inspire you in our ways and get inspired by you people in what all special ways you carry. So thank you very much for all the attention, and all the best for the various activities that will be planned as a part of this conclave, and we look forward to your wholehearted participation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ruchika. That was really inspiring. Now we have two quick digital modes of engagement. We have a very nice curtain raiser that gives you an idea of how the event looked over the 3 years. We are now again and again telling you that this is the 4th year. We did 3 years of very good work. And here is a curtain raiser that we are now going to show you, that shows you how the different climate stalwarts, different thought processes, and different activities were brought forward in the form of Youth Climate Conclave. May I request the IT team to please join. Well, the purpose of showing you these pictures and this movement of YCC over the years was that next year we want to see all your faces on the slides mentioned. So pep up your thoughts, pep up your actions, and there's going to be a lot of action in store for you for YCC Edition 4. So with this, we will now be formally launching the photography competition under YCC Edition 4. And may I request our dignitaries to formally launch it? I think, yes. Just, you've already. Detailed instructions and guidelines are going to reach soon, and we are going to remember you. We are going to remember you by names, and you're going to be our ambassadors in this journey. So each one, everyone, so the entire college campuses, the cities, your networks, they should be activated, and all of you should enthuse others to be a part of the program. And all the students who've just joined us and sitting at the last rows, if there are seats available, if you want to shift on this side, you can do that. Thank you. So with this, we have announced the photographic competition, and we are now for 1 year going to see the world from your eyes. So your cameras, your lenses have to show us the world that all of us want to live in. And to help you know, let you do it better, we have with us Mr. Ashish, who is a photographer by profession, by interest, and by achievement. So, sir, I would request you to give us some interesting and important tips on how we can capture the world through the lens and how we need to bring it to be more interesting for others. Over to you, sir.
Good afternoon, dignitaries and young minds. I will just start about photography and all. So all the time the world changed, it was due to a photograph. During Second World War, a photograph of Churchill changed the way of Second World War. Okay. In Vietnam, a photograph of a burning child changed the Vietnam War. So there are so many cases. In Ethiopia, when there was a famine, the one photograph, a vulture eating a child, changed the world. So one photograph of you can change the world. So photograph have no language. If you are a good writer, you can write in English, the French people cannot study, or other language cannot study. But if a photograph is there, there's no need of language. The whole world can read it. There's no other thing which is more powerful than photograph. How many of you seen Eiffel Tower? I think, how many of you? You will say, oh, most of you have seen what is Eiffel Tower. It's a photograph. How many have seen a Taj Mahal? It's a photograph. So most of our knowledge, say even if you see deeply, around 90% of knowledge is through photograph only. We have seen photograph. How many of you've seen our PM Narendra Modi personally? Most of you, all of you have seen through a photograph. So photograph is very strong medium of mass communication. It's very strong movement. So you all are doing photography, I think. So climate change, what climate change, how it is changing. Have you seen a ship, a photograph of a ship in middle of a desert? Have you seen? Now go in your house and see the Google. You will see a ship in the middle of a desert. That means the desert was some time back was a sea. And due to climate change, that sea become desert. Have you seen thousands of fishes are dying? Photographs are there. So say, have you seen? No. Some of you have seen. So that was one photograph that is showing how the climate is changing. Deserts are expanding. So it is very, you can say, a important thing that your photograph should contribute to the climate change. So how many of you take the such photographs which shows the climate change? Don't take it so seriously, it's very lightly. How many of you? So which kind of photograph you have taken? Yeah. That's way you can contribute to the climate change. So you can go to your villages, how they are, you can see the Garhwal Himalayas, the fresh floods. Recently now the yellow alert is there. People are cutting trees, people are destroying the small ponds, and due to that, there is fresh floods and climate change. So you can photograph those things, you can show the world. You don't need any language. Just simple, you have to click it. Now the photograph is very easy. Initial days, you have to learn it, how to focus, how to give aperture, how to give shutter speed. Now what is in your mind, you can just capture it. Everything is automatic. Even your phone is so advanced. In your phone, you have a camera. And this kind of photographs, which is journalistic photograph, you don't need very grammatical photographs. Where is the strong point, or where is the horizon line, or what is what. But you need that decisive movement. When it happens, you click it. You can click it by your phone only. So this organization, I think the organization was named TERI and all, they are giving you the opportunity to work on this field. So have you gone to your villages, you go to your other places, take photographs, how the things are changing, how the climate is changing. And you know the temperature is going very high nowadays. Why? You can show how the forests are cut, the little forest near the villages. Initially, every village has a forest which is called Dev One or something, the forest for the goddess. They don't used to cut it. The thickest forest in Himalayas you go, they don't cut trees and all there. But nowadays, some modern knowledge, all we deny all those things. It was all regarding environment protection and all. Nowadays, we have shown that trees are nothing. We can cut it, we can grow it. In Delhi, you have seen a lot of trees are cut, but they have grown also. But it will take some time, 10, 20 years, or 50 years old, or 100-year-old trees are cut. But that is also necessary. You need wide roads. So for that, tree cutting is there. But you can take photographs. You can show that how it was and how it is now, and how it will become after tree plantation and all. So photograph is a very strong mass media. A single photograph, you don't need language. You don't need anything else, just a single shot. But shot should be in your mind. You don't need aperture setting, shutter setting, this and that. Just go and click with your phone. Just go click with your simple camera and take important photographs. So most of you have taken photographs, I have seen. So now don't take the stereotype photographs. Environment means just not trees. Environment means just not rivers and all. Environment is mix of all. So when you are global warming, you want to show global warming or whatever it is you want to, you can show it. So your photographs don't need a language. Can you, if you, I write something in my native language, you cannot study. But if I take a good photograph, can you study it? You can study photograph. Sure. How many of you can study photograph? No language is required, but you have to learn how to study it. So any question, anything that you want to know? Actually, you have given me 7 minutes, a very short time. But uh, do you want to ask me something? It is actually dialogue is better than monologue. So I speak and you hear, and then just if you ask something, I can tell you something.
Come up and we're going to ask you more questions in the next session. And one of the purposes, may I please speak in between, is that Sir is involved with the Daily Photographic Club. Similarly, there are so many other clubs where you'll see like-minded networks of people who are into this capture of experiences. So please join them, maybe you form your youth photography club, climate photography club, and promote this message further. And here is an expert. You can always reach out and speak to him, and we'll be arranging specific technical sessions also under this program.
So now the things are very easily available. You don't need a very long, heavy telescopic lens. Now the cameras are very compact. Cameras are cheaper than before. If you say nowadays expensive, but cheaper than before. Before buying a camera, we have to think a lot for years. For buying a lens, we have to wait when it will come from US or America and something, and then we buy a lens. Now it is all available. The equipment is available, but you need thought. Now you have to take photographs which can show you what is our topic, global warming or climate change. Can you tell me something which is changing in your locality, in your village? क्या आपका गांव या घर में कुछ चेंज होता हुआ दिख रहा है आपको? क्या दिखता है? Deforestation and dry lakes, dry ponds, fresh flood. So you can, so you can take photographs and give your message to the world. You don't have to write big articles. You don't have to go somewhere. Take your photograph, internet is there, you write. You just post your photograph on internet, people will see and they can know about what is happening. Anything else? Because I'm teaching and it's very difficult if students say shy and keep and calm. If you don't have question, I don't have answers.
We're going to ask you a question in the next session.
Okay. So, okay. Thank you very much. And I am always available. You can take my phone number from ma'am. Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That was really insightful. And yes, you're going to get very good professional tips very soon. We'll be organizing a workshop on this theme very soon for all of you. So we come to the conclusion of the inaugural session. A very, very sincere thanks to Ma'am Ruchika Joy from Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. Ms. Maria, we have you as a friend and endorser for the program. We are going to bother you a lot, and let's work together and see how we can work towards climate curriculum and science popularization. Sir, so nice to have you with us. We know you from the Bal Bhavan days, and that's how we remembered that we have the right person to speak to the students about apertures and photographs. Ashish sir is going to be with us for the program, and Manjeet Puri sir. So thank you so much. We have a mentor here who's always speaks for the youth and is always there to take forward the messages and also act for you when he's at important forums. So thank you so much for your time. And His Excellency, Mr. Hugo Estuto had to leave, but still a very, very warm thank you to him and his excellent team who's here, and to the Italian Embassy for this program. We are indebted to CEW and GIZ, and we will all be be in touch and we will work towards making this program a great, grander success. Thank you so much. And we can join the dignitaries for a group photograph and then we can move on to the panel discussion and the youth. Please, you can move forward, all the youth participants. Please move forward.
Sorry, my understanding it.
Come fast.
Sure. If you put him down. Nice. Yours very much name. Bye. Yeah. Yeah. One more.
Hello, we now move on to the panel discussion. I invite Ms. Shubha Raha from CEW, Head New Initiatives, to take forward the program. Please. The youth participants in the panel are Ms. Srijani Datta, Mr. Ashraf Nehal. I saw you, Ashraf. Yes. Mr. Nimish Singh, and Ms. Divya Bawa. Please come forward and join the.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I think we had a good break with the photo session. If you're going to settle down for a second, we'll start because we're already running behind schedule. And I want my young friends here to really get their moment in the spotlight, which is really shining in our eyes right now. I'm Shubha Raha. I head new initiatives at the Council on Energy, Environment and Water. We are one of Asia's leading policy research institutions and a globally recognized climate think tank. As part of my job, I work with governments and multilateral organizations and institutions to head strategic new initiatives. For example, I've worked on Make in India. I worked on setting up of the International Solar Alliance. Now I'm working, as you've been hearing, on the LIFE mission, which I'll talk about a little bit more. and India's G20 presidency, which is coming up. So I've been working with the government of India on that. Now, I'm going to start by introducing our panel here, but before that, I want to give all of you a small challenge because we have the LIFE mission being launched shortly by Honorable Prime Minister, and we are looking at ways to nudge behaviors towards more sustainable production and consumption systems. So what can you do as individuals, or what can industry do, for example, or what can the government do, any entity and how their behavior can change. But there are also two more pillars to this, that is enabling markets. So once we change our behavior, our economic models have to change to support those behaviors. So how do you think those market mechanisms can come into play? And finally, one other pillar that Honorable Prime Minister has spoken about, and I strongly believe in, is to change our definition of prosperity or the materialism that we associate now with affluence or success, and go towards something that is more sustainable, not just in the green sense, but also that sustains our soul and sustains the future of our country, our world, and our environment. So I'm going to park that thought with you. After this, if any of you have any ideas to contribute to this right now, I'm happy to listen to that. But even if you don't have it right now, please do write into the organizers and we will take those ideas forward. So with that, I'm going to take some extra time. I guess we're supposed to end at 4:25. It's 4:25 now. So we'll take another 30 minutes. I think that should be fair. And let me start with my colleague to my left, who's also alphabetically the first person, Ashraf Nehal. So Ashraf, you're a master's candidate at the School of Oriental and African Studies at the University of London. You're also a distinguished climate leader who's been affiliated with the YCC for 4 years. So you have some historical perspective on what's happening here. And this is a very interesting thing about Ashraf, because I'm going to ask him to summarize what this means. The Indian news channel NewsX has listed him among one of the 5 brightest youngsters in India. Now, we've heard that 50% of Indians are youngsters. So that's about 75 million people. So 750 million people, actually. What makes you one of the top 5?
I guess this can be answered better by the NewsX editors and the management team.
But what was the qualifying criteria for you?
So like my experience, like
You'll have
I'm
to
so
hold it a
sorry.
bit little closer. No, it's always hold it.
Is it better?
Is it better?
Thank you. So yeah, my outstanding factor was my association with government, think tanks, public policy houses, and obviously leading diplomatic fronts with a special focus to climate change. Just yesterday, I was with the Zimbabwe ambassador discussing how we can do bilaterally well in terms of climate change. So this was taken into cognizance by NewsX team.
Okay, that's very impressive. And we're going to come back to what you are doing in these bilateral meetings. And next I have on the far left, my colleague Divya Bawa, who's a junior advisor for climate change and circular economy at GIZ India. She's a postgraduate and a silver medalist in environmental science. She has worked as a project associate in CSIR, CSID on dust mitigation. Her interests include interdisciplinary work across waste management, pollution, and other such social and scientific intersections, if you will. And she's been working on a project on setting up innovative value chains for e-waste management. So Divya, if you can see me, I want to ask you one starting question before we go to the standard ones. One of the biggest challenges with e-waste management is collection and segregation, and also the fact that the unorganized sector, the informal sector is handling this. What is one innovative idea that you think can transform that?
So, as you have mentioned, I am working on this project which is being funded by GIZ and BMUV, and the project name is Setting Up Innovative Value Chain for Electronic Waste Management. So, as we all know, informal sector is quite prevalent in electronic waste sector. 95% of the electronic waste is handed over to the informal sector because all the stakeholders involving like the schools or colleges, general public, they're not aware about the formal channelizing of electronic waste, how to properly channelize it, how to give them to the formalized collection centers. So through our project, we have set up 4 collection centers in cities of Delhi, 2 in city of Delhi and 2 in the city of Hyderabad. And both of them are, we conduct a lot many collection drives as well as awareness campaigns to collect electronic waste from resident welfare associations and other relevant stakeholders, bulk consumers, dealers, retailers, and then we ensure that that electronic waste is going to formal recycling centers. So we are also supporting the formalization of recycling centers as well. So yeah.
Thanks, Divya. So that is an example of actually taking an idea or a thought to actual on-ground implementation, which is very, very different when you see the logistics involved, which involves hundreds of thousands of people, millions of households, billions of units of e-waste. So all this has to be kept in mind while we move towards sustainable solutions. Now, coming to my right, I have Nimish Singh, who's Associate Fellow of the Earth Science and Climate Change Division here in TERI. Now, Nimish is a mechanical engineer and he did his MTech in Atmospheric Ocean Sciences from IIT Delhi, Nimish. And now you're pursuing a PhD in air pollution and climate change linkages. He has worked for 6 years now, and he has worked in and led projects on air pollution, climate change, ambient air quality, the modeling of that, very, very important to predict changes in air quality. Source apportionment studies is a lot of jargon, but there's something I work with every day, and you would also if you got into this field. Ambient air quality, that's what we're inhaling all the time, what's around us, and so on. And he's also participated in capacity building of state and central pollution control board officials. Now, a very interesting point over here. So coming to on-ground implementation, and you work with state and central pollution control board officials, how has that been working with government officials? They get a lot of flack. How are you solving their problems?
So the first. Hello. So the first issue that we actually see when we interact with these officials is they know what is written in the law, and our laws are a bit old. I think in 80s, 70s, then that those things were implemented. And when we are talking about assessment and understanding of these issues, because new tech is there, so they are a bit lacking in those sense. So that's what we do. We go there. We have the residential programs also. We call them here also in Delhi. We have these programs. We build their capacities both in technical as well as based on the knowledge terms, and that's how we display our knowledges in the reports also. That's what we do.
Thank you, Nimish. And this again is a very important pillar of the work that all of us do, which is to enable our stakeholders, which is government or industry or your neighbors, whoever it is, to really understand the science or the logic behind what is required, and then give them formal or professional training to handle these complex circumstances. And last but not the least, Srijani Datta, underground sociology student at Hindu College, University of Delhi. Srijani has been involved in the climate movement since her school days, and she co-heads the research team at Youth for Climate India. She also writes frequently on the intersections of politics, social movements, environment, and gender. And she has recently established a climate library in Delhi. Srijani, you have to tell us what this is about, the climate library.
First of all, thank you so much for introducing me. Secondly, about the climate library, for me, I think somebody had mentioned that knowledge is power, right? And I strongly believe that. When you shift knowledge bases from an elite group of researchers or think tanks, or certain kind of people to the general masses, that is when you can actually build power within those communities. As a student, I've always been interested in research, and a lot of other young people that I work with through Youth for Climate India, we realize that, we do not have access to research papers or the best kind of resources that are required to actually, enable climate education, because those are behind paywalls. And sometimes we also do not know who has those resources, which are the best organizations in certain domains, right? So that is where the idea of the climate library came about. We used to have reading circles, which were sort of, book readings on climate justice. So then I eventually had the idea. I was at COP26 last year. I discussed it with a few Indians, and they were really interested in the idea, and they really liked it. That's when I realized this could be like a, concrete idea where we could have a climate library. It's in South X. You should definitely visit.
I think, guys, you should. And, as Ashish sir said, it's very important to have these networks that empower and amplify the messages and the work that each of us are doing. So please, her Climate Library, Ashish sir's Photography Club, please take the initiative and be proactive to reach out to these people and also support the good work that they have started, but it needs to be carried forward, and that requires all of you people out there. So before I go forward, one more personal question to each of you, because I'm sure a lot of people would have questions on as to how you got into these fields, the jobs that you do. What were did you plan to get into it? Did it happen organically? Was it a passion that turned into education, or did it happen the other way? So I'm going to start with you, Divya. Tell us a little bit. And also, in addition to that, tell us what you think could be changed in our education and skilling systems to allow everybody at least the awareness that these fields exist and how they can get into it.
So we're starting with I connected I connect to nature naturally. It happened organically that I chose this subject, environmental science, because specifically in India, I see that waste is not properly handled. There is a lack of awareness among people. Waste segregation is not happening. If we talk about wet waste and dry waste, we have separate bins, but I don't see any person who is properly following it in India. They're not segregating their waste in their homes also. We are not segregating our kitchen waste with other plastic, and we are using plastic. Single-use plastic is being still used. Thankfully, it has been banned now recently. So I hope now we move towards sustainable living and we start using jute bags or organically made products which are less harmful to the environment. So yeah, this gradually seeing these things that motivated me to choose this as a career so that I can contribute my part to improve the environment in which we are living in. And what was the second question? Sorry, I forgot.
What do you think our education or skilling systems can give our students or youth? Some sort of precursor training or information to help them get into these fields?
So it should start at school level. Like in the curriculum itself, we should have some topics which are related to climate change so that students start getting more awareness at school level itself. And it should not be just in books, it should be more practical. Like the school teachers and all the staff members, they should conduct some activities which are related to like waste segregation or something like that, which can make students work practically and understand the concepts of climate change more in a more good manner. Yeah.
Thanks, Divya. Shijini, you want to add to that?
Sure. So I really love this question because I actually was involved in a research report on this, and researchers love talking about their research reports. So I'll do the same. It was a youth-led research. It happened in 10 countries. It was under restless development. I was the youth researcher from India. And it was basically on the state of youth education, skills, and citizenship across the world during the COVID-19 pandemic. In India, I conducted over 20 focus group discussions, and across the focus group discussions, there was the same sentiment that the transferable skills are not being taught, right, at the school levels, which can be used across sectors. For example, in the climate sector, for something as simple as GIS mapping, right? You can use it in many different sectors. People want to learn that. Second is very simple, even soft skills are missing, the development of soft skills, because when you are in advocacy, when you are in community building, when you want behavior change to take place at a scale, you need to have those soft skills to be able to convince people, to be able to build leadership in other young people. So those two things. And third was entrepreneurship skills were also missing, because you need to, sort of make it lucrative, whatever you're doing, to actually have like a livelihood out of it. So young people do have ideas, as is evident from my other panelists. They do have good ideas. They need the resources, but also how to, make those networks, how to actually make it lucrative. Those are also some skills that young people want and feel like there's a gap in.
Thanks, Srijani. And to add to that, what she said, this going from the soft skills part of it to convincing people to really having that connect, and not just with general public. You have to have connect with politicians. You have to influence the media. You have to influence social media. There are many communication channels, and I'm gonna take that part of influencing because Ashraf, you've been doing some of that through your bilaterals and multilaterals. Tell us a bit about how you are taking this international for us.
Well, I'll start from the very local actions where I started. To be honest, my experience is way different than my co-panelist. I come from a literature and linguistic background, and my entry into the space was via the college eco club. And what disturbed me, I mean, like most of us from Delhi University, so during the Dusu time, the paper waste that the streets are covered with is highly disturbing, and that is where I entered. So this was a campaign that I developed along with a few couple of friends, that I would vote to the candidate who is using minimal paper or is using recycling modes as another alternative. And this did help. At times I got into spat with NSUI folks. ABVP was a bit cooperative, and this was a mode I even took over to voting for 2020 Delhi elections. So after that, we got a referendum from the office of Raghav Chadda, who was a little supportive. Another person, there's this member of parliament from BJD. And unfortunately, the big wigs are not making good change. I don't know what is up to them. But yeah, there are some marginal figures who are doing really good. So as I was mentioning about this member of parliament from BJD, Sujit Kumar, he is doing phenomenally well. He has launched some fellowship programs, and a lot of that can be entailed by students and youngsters like ourselves. And again, coming to the international bit of it, embassies are very much into it. So just yesterday, I got to know that embassy of Zimbabwe and Zambia, they have launched a collaborative program along with the Commonwealth, where they are looking to include youth for foreign exchange and cultural programs and include the gist of climate change into it. And adding on to it, WWF is also having a project named as Environment Conservation Heroes. I was a part of it during my college days. So they also give these modules way better, like they will teach you climate entrepreneurship, help you deal with real life challenges. And for newbies like me, it is a really phenomenal space to enter.
Yes, and to add to this, I mean, India, as you know, is the startup heaven of the world. We have something like 100 unicorns, but most of them are in the tech space. So we are waiting for those climate unicorns to come through, and we're hoping that you guys are going to be able to do that because now the time is absolutely ripe for that, because 2030 Sustainable Development Goal agenda is right there for us to take. India and all other UN countries have the Paris Agreement, nationally determined contributions, so those targets are being measured. A whole lot of countries, more than 70, have given net zero targets that will have net zero emissions by 2050 or 60 or 70. We have more than 1,200 to 1,300 companies worldwide that have given these targets. And all of these people need not only information themselves, but also their value chains or their supply chains, their suppliers, their franchisees, all of them to be sustainable and net zero and green to achieve those targets. So right now is the time to get into entrepreneurship in this sector. And Nimish, I want to ask you a slightly different question because you have had experience in working in this area. So how do you get people who haven't had this sort of training in school, or they haven't had climate change as a part of their curriculum or even the awareness? How do you get people like that into this sustainability movement that's coming up?
Now, there is a new area that might some of you might have heard of it or not. It's the short-lived climate pollutant. So what we are actually trying to educate people on that part is linking the climate part directly with the health aspect, because that is health is something which is very close to everyone and it impacts everyone's life. So what we are actually trying to educate people is about the health aspect. We go on the ground. There is an inhaler about the lung capacity is there. So how much based on your age, this much would be the amount of pressure that you might be able to exhale out of in that machine. So this we did in Punjab, where the agriculture burning is prominent. We try to educate people based on that part. Other than that, there are different modes also. We have arranged for Nukkad Nataks in Lucknow, Pune, Nasik, these kind of cities. Along with that, certain competitions in different malls and marketplaces, just to make our reach more rather than just restricting ourselves to schools and colleges. So that is something that we are actually trying to do. That's how we are trying to educate people who have not been educated in this school and colleges about these kind of stuff.
And how did you get into this, like the original part of the question?
So the field, actually, as you said, I was a mechanical engineer. So my interest lied in basically the research on fluid dynamics, cars and planes and all those kind of things. So going in that direction, I just increased it from there to atmosphere because that is a bigger fluid, and from there it went into the. So it's not actually a planned thing, but
Yeah, but it just flowed like your fluid mechanics. Yeah.
yeah.
Just before I move on, one more thing. How shocking was it for those Punjab people to see their inhaler results, or what sort of results came out of that?
So they tried to breathe again and again.
Yeah, okay. So I was going to ask you a double warning question, but you answered it with a far more interesting anecdote about that. So, okay, all right. Now I'm going to come to one of the more serious questions that we had is, how to get the youth to actually undertake sustained change in their behavior and motivation, right? Because one thing is to know what to do, one thing is to even want to do it. But one thing is to actually do it and not just do it one day when you're feeling super motivated, but to do it every single day, even if it's not fun in the beginning, or even if it's inconvenient or expensive. Because a lot of times when we ask people that, even in our office, and I belong to the Council on Energy, Environment and Water, and you think that we'll be the first to champion these things. But when we take office surveys and we said, do you want to give even say 30 rupees or 50 rupees for something like that, it's not that easy to come by. So when we are talking of deploying something like a mission life for 1 billion people, and last month we worked on the methodology for that with the government of India, with Niti Aayog. How are we going to deploy that? How are we going to measure that? How is it going to be scrutinized? The world is going to check what India is doing, what we're claiming. But here comes the whole point, and I want to start again with Divya, but then I'm going to come to Nimesh, and then Sijani, and then Ashraf on this, that to what level can we really think that people will participate in such things? And what would be the motivators or the demotivators for them to take transformative change of this sort?
Okay, so when we are talking about sustainable lifestyle, so what does that basically means? It is just a cluster of habits and patterns of behavior embedded in society in order to minimize the use of natural resources and generation of wastes while supporting fairness and prosperity for all. So leading a sustainable and eco-friendly lifestyle, it is not difficult at all. It just requires us to alter our mindset as well as becoming concerned and sensitive towards need of the hour. So we might think that buying products which are more sustainable are expensive, but that will be beneficial for us in long run. So it is just a simple idea which just needs us to readjust our consumption habits. So starting like very basic example, like we can shift to more sustainable furnishing and appliances. Secondly, we can reduce the use of high footprint materials like paper, plastics, and textiles. We should stop using single-use plastics. Shift to more sustainable appliances means using such things. They might be expensive, but yes, they will be less harmful to the environment, and they are much easier to recycle as well. And coming to the barriers, there are several barriers, as ma'am has already pointed out, that breaking our old habit is difficult, but this is the hour we need to change our old habits and move towards more sustainable living. Lack of awareness among citizens about basic concepts, like they don't know about carbon footprints, So they should be made more aware of this, that what are carbon footprints, what is climate change, because many people still can't answer what is climate change, right? Then again, I have already pointed out that high cost pricing, and as we know, these things are more conveniently available, which are not sustainable, but and they are less costly. That's why people try, they just buy things which are less sustainable. They're not aware of harmful impacts after they end up in landfills. So yeah, so in summing up, I would just like to say that these are some of the barriers and we just need to readjust our consumption habits.
Thanks, Divya. Nimish?
Yeah, so for the youth, first thing why they should do it is because if they don't, so I don't think so there is much of an option not to do it there. The second point is I would take it from the appliances part. So we did a very interesting study on the appliances part on the just efficient refrigeration systems. So if we go for an efficient refrigeration system, India's policy is there, ICAP, Indian Cooling Action Plan. So if we just follow that part, we might end up saving about 36,000 lives by 2040. So I think it's a very simple solution, just shifting ourselves to more efficient systems, and we might actually be doing a lot just by changing our own lifestyle. And the behavioral part is, I think, based on my experiences on the ground, the major part I think that we need to change is the behavioral aspect. It's a very simple thing that we need to do is uh, like changing our fooding habits, not going for the unseasonal foods because that requires cold storage, transportation, and all those kind of emissions. So that can be reduced. Other things, appliances have been mentioned, and so on and so forth. And one thing that I would actually like to ask you guys to push for, and the photography competition is, I think, one thing very important that can be done in that aspect is putting the political pressure. Now we have the power of social media, which is easily accessible and has a very, very, very wide scope. Uh, if we want to do something about the climate, I think the climate change should be part of our political aspects. Every political party should be looking after these kind of things. Only then we might actually see some change on that.
And that's actually spot on, because one of my questions was on how do you create this political economy, but we'll get into that a little later. I want to add to what he said. India is the first country in the world to have the cooling action plan. It started with phasing out, HFCs or CFCs, as we call the coolants in refrigerators, etc. But now it has, of course, gone further than that, because as we can see with climate change, it's becoming warmer, but it's also becoming more humid. So what we see is a drastic rise in requirement for air conditioning, without which we'll not be able to be productive. So we'll not be able to work the required number of hours for most of the year, which has a direct impact on the GDP of countries. But using cooling systems has a feedback loop, because the more you use, the more you heat, the more you need to cool that. So it goes in a circle. So this is another area that's very challenging, but also an area of opportunity for innovation. Same goes for star labeled appliances. So you have heard of 3-star, 4-star, 5-star. They're energy efficient appliances. There's marginal difference in cost. And this is again something that a lot of people are studying with as to what is the cost barrier for people to choose between a star label, like a 4-star or a 3-star appliance. And a lot depends on the sellers or the shopkeepers over there to explain that, why the consumer should buy that. So that's another touch point that you need to inform and influence for this. And one of the very successful things that India has done, which is a case study now globally, is the LED bulbs program. In which almost 360 million LED bulbs were replaced across the country in street lights as well as households. But this was not done through subsidies. It was done through economies of scale, where government procured branded bulbs from private sector companies. And because a large numbers were procured at one time, the cost of that fell from, let's say, 360 rupees a bulb to around 70 or 80 rupees a bulb, which then made it affordable for every single person to have. So now we take LED bulbs for granted, but around 5 years ago, we all still had incandescent bulbs or CFLs, which were very, very harmful to the environment. So this sort of market mechanism also changes, the way we approach sustainability in day-to-day lives. But Srijani, over to you, please.
Thank you for talking about that because that was exactly what I was coming to. It's about
Sorry that I took your answer.
it's about an ecosystem development to enable young people to make that behavioral shift, right? As is evident, behavioral shift is almost always inconvenient, expensive, or requires some kind of effort. So why is it not happening? It's because there's no ecosystem to enable that. That is also where support to young people comes into the picture, right? I'll take the example of waste. So I live in Dwarka, and in each society there are almost equal number of houses, and anything you do in one society is very easily scalable to the other society, right? Because we have very similar administration systems. So I really wanted for waste to be segregated and the wet waste to be composted within the colony, because we do have that kind of space to do that. But now there are several things which come into the process. I'm a young person. I need to figure out who in the RWA will be supportive of that. So I spoke to some RWA officials 2 years ago. They did not agree. I was not able to get it through. This time I was, because I've also gained certain soft skills in terms of, how to lobby, how to convince people, how to show the positive impacts of a certain project. Because, certain organizations such as Youth for Climate India have really invested in my upskilling in that sort. Second is, how do I get the knowledge about how and where to build the most efficient kind of composting, right? What kind of waste is coming out, and a lot of times in composting it's broken down further, like in this pit goes this kind of waste, in this pit goes that kind of waste. So I needed the technical skills too, but I knew of some organizations who provide that kind of expertise to young people who want to have compost pits in and around them, right? So what I'm trying to say is that you need to develop that ecosystem where young people are able to take that change. For a matter of fact, CEW's recent report on like a youth vision showed that 80% of young people were willing to change their dietary habits. They were willing to cycle or walk more. They were willing to segregate their waste. But all of this, if you realize and think, if you're willing to make, I lost my train of thought, sorry. Yeah. 80% of them do want to, change those habits, but there's no ecosystem for that. But I'll just add very shortly on one thing. There's this ladder of engagement that we use in our work, right? So one, the lowest level of engagement is observing. So imagine in a college, 30% of people are really interested in, okay, oh, what are they doing? They're talking about waste, they're talking about segregation of waste. Then maybe 10% they follow you and they follow your newsletter, they sign up for your newsletter, so they get constant updates about what actions they can take to minimize their waste, segregate their waste. So that's a step higher, right? Then there's a step higher above that where people become endorsers. They endorse this, they start doing it themselves, and they start endorsing it, that okay, you should segregate your waste, right? That is again a step higher. Then again a step higher would be, okay, that person is really interested, and then they start holding events continuously and more frequently in their college about waste segregation. They get bins made. So basically you're providing that space for them to grow as a leader and to grow their engagement, which is very important in, I think, enabling that kind of a change.
Excellent, thank you. Ashraf?
All right. So I would like to start with the part where you questioned about youth participation. I believe that the youth are highly willing with the participation today in this hall or the faces in COP26, Chogam. That sends across a strong message that youth is willing. But again, the mobilization is difficult. Now, we don't need to come to the opportunities and barriers, but just like the behavioral factor of change. as we know, the opportunities are manifold. We don't need to discuss that a sustainable diet is very healthy, it would result in less waste. All of this lies there. But what is the compelling factor? Cost, efficiency, adaptability, accessibility. I mean, just giving a personal gist. Again, for my Eco Club Society event, we were to endorse zero plastic usage, but the funding available to us was so limited that we had no way out but to resort back to plastic. Now, here I don't believe any political or diplomatic pressure can work, because it's all about a behavioral factor. Even in India, we have part like Sikkim, where single-use plastic, or even like now they're almost in the verge of being plastic neutral. So if one part of the country can get that into practice, why can't the whole country as in general? So rather than focusing on political, diplomatic, I would believe the behavioral factor is the most important thing. And the incubation of all of this into academic practices, all of this, would I believe that take into better elevation.
Thanks. So I'm going to ask one last question and then I'm going to open it up. We'll take 3 questions. So please have your questions ready. It's going to be short and you can tell us which of the panelists you are asking that question to and they will answer that. All right. So, but before we go there, so the 3 P's, right? You have passion and you have purpose and you have policy and you have the practicality of everything. What's driving you?
It's passion and practicality of everything. I think these two things are something that I'm working for, because one of the aims of doing the research part was to link it with the policy part, because most of the times it is quite oftenly said, at least in our country, about that the research is not linked with the policies. Policies goes because it's a democracy based on whatever is demanded, and money and everything, while research is a bit different. So this is something that is driving me towards working on this part, linking both of them and proving the part that yes, it is, the sustainable living is possible economically also.
That's great. Divya, the 4 P's, which you can pick 1, 2, 3, or all 4.
So out of all of them, I would say it's passion. So I'm passionate about making this world a better place to live in. I'm passionate about addressing all the major environmental issues that we are facing. I want to contribute my part in any way, whether through projects or through participation in awareness campaigns to make people aware about how to properly manage their waste, and making them aware about climate change. What is climate change? And yeah, so I would say, yeah, it's passion.
Ashok, take your P.
Again, it's passion. Why I'm focusing on fashion is like, I mean, like sustainable living is in everyday living, everyday part of life. And if we see that if it makes a huge benefit, but keeping that side aside, we see that it's important to make a change, irrespective of how much it can be impactful. But it all starts from the passion, the behavioral factor, which I've already focused at length.
And do you practice all this stuff that you were talking about? How much of it do you practice? The 5th P.
Okay. Well, I try to inculcate not completely, but the most I can. So I wouldn't deny that just today I'm violating it by using a single-use paper, which could be done by other modes. But yeah, otherwise, in terms of public transport, and very soon I'll be in UK, so I have no other way out but to follow a very sustainable living there. And irrespective of water wastage or segregation, I am a little careful there.
So I want to point out that, see, he has noticed that he's using an extra sheet of paper. As you can see, I am paperless. So you have to be sort of cognizant of it at that level. Everything you touch, every glass, every container, everything you have to be aware of what you're doing. Wrap it up for us, Sridhani, one of the 4 P. The passion, the purpose, the policies, or the practicalities. What drives you? And policies are also there. I mean, you can be not passionate about it, but like politicians do policies, whether they
Yeah.
care about it or not. So that is also a way.
I think for me, it's about purpose and policy, because I am a sociology student, and I feel like, what is the purpose of a Green New Deal? What is the purpose of building back better? We need to reimagine that. We need to keep communities at the center. I have always been passionate about gender issues and caste issues. So that's also why I got into this movement, because I strongly feel that in India, in the Indian context, the practicality bit is rooted in a context of gender and caste and religion and all of that. And for me, the policies have to be inclusive. The purpose is to make it inclusive. The purpose is to mainstream these, minority voices in building back better, because that is also the practical way to go forward.
She touches upon a very important point. The gender and the class or the caste, all of these things are a very, very core part of policy formulation. One thing that we always try to do through any policy when we advocate is to have measurable gender metrics, so or measurable youth metrics. So what percentage of this will impact women, or how much jobs are created for women, or how many jobs are created for youth. So these are very, very statistical metrics that we have now started integrating in every recommendation that we also make. It's a pretty large topic, so maybe we can have another conversation on that. So now, any questions for our young champions today? I cannot see well, so if any hands are up. Yes, hi. I don't know if we can give her a mic, or maybe you can just talk. Yeah, I can hear you. Oh, for me? Okay.
Localization not is climate friendly, and is localization a mistake, or is localization a better alternative to localization? Is there any scope of bringing in localization in India, for example, villages, rural areas?
So, very important question. And to answer your question, to answer it, our focus is on as much localization as possible, because even as Nimish said, that the more you move things around, your carbon footprint is just going on increasing. That's one part, but we also believe that the climate and the topology and the geography and the local culture and habits have developed using the local resources over thousands of years, if not millennia. And there is value to that. So a lot of India's focus when we talk of redefining prosperity is to look at the non-Western models of prosperity, or the consumption levels, or the food patterns, if you will, what we call sustainable food systems for not just Indians. I mean, you can talk about Africa. We have projects there. You have Latin America. So something like, let's say, quinoa, which is a grain from there, which is traveling all over the world because it's a fad food right now. That has a terrible carbon footprint if you're going to look purely from that perspective. So localization, we also feel, and India has been doing a lot of work on this, on retrieving IPRs, which are licenses or ownerships of indigenous goods and products that have been claimed by foreign companies as their innovation. So a lot of work has been happening on geotagging resources. It can be something famous like basmati rice. That's a case that's been going on for a long time. But also, let's say, neem as a medical ingredient, or let's say turmeric, for example. These have all been patented by countries and companies saying that they've invented or innovated it. So that IPR battle has been going on. We have now a formal program of geotagging. Indigenization of innovative systems. So what we call, let's say, post-farm gate activity. So after you have the crop systems, what do we do with the foods? Like if you have, let's say, pickling or jamming or things like that, or the way you process your dairy, or the way we do agricultural systems, all of them have value in indigenous ways of doing things. And we are bringing them back because they are ecologically sustainable, they're cost effective, they're usable and practical to the people, the local communities that work over there. So very much so, and a big part of redefining prosperity is to bring in some of the civilizational knowledge of all communities across the world. And we believe that a lot of that has been lost, or has been homogenized, but there is value to having these unique identities and then making it a global phenomenon. I mean, there's much to learn from small communities, let's say in Africa, who are innovating on very small budgets, or they're small island developing nations who have their unique problems because they have very small lands and they cannot, let's say, do utility scale solar. That India is a large country, we can do many things. So many such things are underway. Your point is very well taken, and that is a pillar of this very new area that we're getting into, which is redefining prosperity for the global south as well. I mean, what is prosperity? So we are questioning that at a very fundamental level. So I hope that answers your question. We have a couple of reports. I'm happy to share that I, in fact, wrote one of those reports on sustainable lifestyles and redefining prosperity for the Stockholm conference that we had earlier this year, the UN conference. And this was taken up as a discussion topic over there in the official report. So, any other questions?
Ma'am,
I'm not able to see. Okay, so you have to kind of introduce yourself and
yeah,
ask the question.
okay, it's not really a question. But okay, I
Um,
think my voice is loud enough. Can I keep the
yes.
mic aside? Okay, all right, all right. So it's more of a point that I want to make. Like as we sit in this room, we are actually using this heavily air-conditioned room, and we are. The irony is that we are talking about climate change and we are sitting in a room which is overly air conditioned, and that is why you can see me wrapped in my stole, because it is quite uncomfortable for me. And see, I'm not really against AC per se, but when the climate outside is good enough, why don't we exploit it? And why are we not putting our minds, and why are we not being mindful is my question that I want to ask all of you. See, sustainable choices and lifestyle and everything that we are hearing about today starts with all basic level thinking, starts with questioning what is around you. You don't really have to read reports to know what is sustainable living, but you just have to be mindful of what you're doing. Just be mindful of any small thing you do. There is the solution. You don't have to go for something too big and, you know, break your head before you actually step into this sustainable living if you haven't already. So this is what I would like to point. That's it.
No, that's a very, I mean, behavior is what you do all the time. It's not unique activities.
Right.
So like I said, everything that you do, what she's saying is to be mindful of everything you touch, everything you do, where you sit, what you're eating, you know, what
Yes.
you're drinking from, everything matters. I saw somebody here. Yeah, please. No, you in the dark shirt. Yeah.
Ma'am, I have two questions, one for Srijani and one for Ashraf. So, since you are a kind of entrepreneur, I believe. So, we see that there are many kinds of initiative taking place all over the country related to climate and sustainability, and we see a lot of diversity as well as many times a similarity. What do you think is the issue in the major implementation, because we still don't see a change at a bigger level? So, is it the scale or is it more than that?
I think a very valid question, because this is so we were at Alcoy together just like in September, and this is something a lot of people were talking about, that there are hundreds of initiatives in India working on different sectors of mitigation, adaptation, many different things. Why isn't it working out? I think first is something that I have personally noticed is that a lot of these initiatives are very top down in approach, that a few people from say Delhi, Bangalore, Mumbai, all these people, but mostly us Delhi people, we end up going to these places in rural areas or semi-urban areas, and we are taught certain things in our colleges and universities about adaptation, mitigation, all that stuff, which is of course relevant, which is scientifically backed up, but local realities are often very different. The incentive for them to change to a certain thing or take up a certain lifestyle um, are missing, and also because you are not building community, you're just intervening, you're coming and telling them, okay, this is what we want to do. You're not co-creating with them as to what are the issues. You're not identifying with those people what are the issues, what are things that they care about, what are the value systems that they have in place, and what are the issues that they prioritize. So people's priorities will define what they're willing to work on. So you going with your agenda does not usually work. Second is that ecosystem development has not taken place for every subsection. For example, in waste management, waste segregation, if we take it, that ecosystem integration, okay, people who do cleanup drives, there are hundreds of youth groups who do that. Recyclers, people who work on recyclers' rights, waste workers' rights, that kind of integration has not happened for them to come together and do things, right? So if you keep doing it in silos, it will not work out because one, you don't have those kind of resources. And two is because, you are not using the existing resources also, which other people have who are working in the same sector. So I think those are my main 2 points. And also the way you understand resources, right? It's knowledge, it's money, it's your networks, right? Those are broadly what we understand as resources. So for example, Youth for Climate India is currently working on an air pollution campaign in 3 cities, Moradabad, Faridabad, and Lucknow. So what we're doing in Lucknow is we are leveraging our networks. We actually reached out to CEW's office in Lucknow, I had friends there. So we're inviting them, we're inviting climate trends to share their knowledge with us, giving them a chance to, share their research with more young people. So there we're not spending like money spending on, research or like not spending time. Then we're identifying young people who are building their capacity. So we recently had a 100 people event in Lucknow, and it was, sort of organized within 20 days. And I spent, and I do the accounting, exactly 650 rupees on the entire event. We fed people, we had researchers come in, we had 100 people who attended, just 650 rupees. Why? Because I personally trained young people in Lucknow as to how to do, how things to keep in mind, logistics to keep in mind. We gave them a budget that, okay, you have 7K, you use that however you want. But they figured out food partners who were willing to just support it because they think it's an issue. They think air pollution is a big problem in Lucknow. That's why they just simply, gave it. A university, 3 universities gave us a space because local kids were willing to do that. They approached them. If I went and approached them, they would not have agreed. So it's also about that.
Right. So solution should come from community, and we should have strengthened networks and participatory approach. And my next question is from Ashraf. So since you said that rather than political pressure, we should have a behavioral change at individual level. My personal approach is about are we willing to train or wish to train retailers or the salesman or the person who actually convince a consumer? Because when a person is buying a product, he goes to a shop, and I mean, are we working at that level to convince to train or to sensitize a retailer or a shopkeeper or someone who is selling the product to convince his consumer to buy that?
Perhaps, yeah, that is my personal opinion. And a lot of it has to do with the, again, approach thing. We cannot just put the onus. I mean, like if you see the salesman, he's definitely thinking from a profit making objective. And as the customer, we will also see where we can save our pennies. But again, this has to do with behavior. Now, a bit of lawmaking is required there, but again, that is not very stringent. As if there's 100% ban on plastic, there's no alternative. You have to think of eco-friendly objectives. But why would somebody, I mean, like in India, political pressure is always going to be vague. If we see that our parliament is in the verge of being digital, and this has been promised for 7 years, till date, it is in a disastrous state. So I cannot, I am hopeful, but I don't know how much of it can really be turned into a realistic figure in the coming years. And yeah, being behavioral factor and optimistic is all that we can hope for.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to have to wrap up with, I want to say 3 things. One is that you have to question everything, go back to first principles, do not take anything for granted. We don't have to do how things were done before. In fact, we should not be doing most things as they have already been done or as we're doing right now. So give it fresh thought. This feeds into also the live suggestions, and whether photos, whether blogs you write into us, whatever it is, please participate in that movement. The second thing that we have seen over time is that either banning or making mandatory does not work if you've not made the pathway to achieve whatever the goal you've done. So suddenly one day you ban crackers, suddenly one day you ban stubble burning, suddenly one day you make mandatory BS6. All of these are knee-jerk actions which very little thought behind them, which is why they also fail repeatedly. So when you're looking at policy or any sort of change at any level, you need to have a pathway to that change. And with that, I'm going to say thank you. It's been engrossing. We've overrun our time significantly, but I think it was of value to everyone. A big hand for my fellow panelists over here. Divya, Srijani, Ashraf, and Nimesh, thank you. And we'll see you soon.
Yeah. So before the closing remarks, I also would like to say something. So I'm Edwin from the EU delegation. I've been involved in all the Youth Climate Conclaves, and I just want to advertise again how special these climate conclaves have been. We have had leading scientists from both Europe and India, leading policymakers from both Europe and India, and also representatives from mainly Indian companies, multinationals, and also excellent think tanks, as you have seen today also by Shuva from CEEW. And so the events itself, it's really interesting to participate. There's only place for 100 to 150 people. One way to get access is this photo competition, and the best 24 photos, I think 24, yeah. So they will be selected and they have access to this Youth Climate Conclave, which will be in Delhi, and we hope to have people from all over India. So it's also, I think, a very special networking possibility for you to meet people from all over India that care about climate change and that care about what youth can do to tackle it. Also, so that is one reason to join the photo competition. Another reason, and we hope that is a nice reason, this time we will try to really have a professional exhibition of the photos. So for 1 week, we will exhibit them and we will try to show them to Delhi. So if you like photography and if you want your photography to be seen by others, this is another reason to participate. So I think today was really excellent. I think the panel was excellent. I'm always impressed, a little bit jealous of the eloquence of the youth of today. So really, really impressed. And for me, it's also really beautiful to see that people care and that they have ideas on how to make a change in today's world. So I just stop here. I just wanted to plea again, please join and please try to be there at the Youth Climate Conclave, which will be in February. Yeah.
And thank you once again to all the speakers and to the moderator, Ms. Shubha, as well. I hope you all enjoyed as much as I did. It was quite an interesting session and a lot of insights to take from this session. And with this, it's just a way forward that I want to, concluding remarks. And what Edwin has mentioned already, that we have actually, put it in the in just a slide, and we'll just do a 1 minute I'll not take much of your time. We have already exceeded almost an hour, I think. But yeah, so for this photography competition, we have 2 age categories. As you all know, it's from class age 10 to 25. So from 10 to 18, we have category A, and 19 to 25, we have category B. And so this time the theme is on smart choices for a sustainable future. And this is in fact an eye-opening session, I would say, for everyone to start thinking of what you would put that thought and how would you take a photograph on. So yeah, I think, okay, the slides might
not work, but yeah. Okay, so this is the competition, and this has gone online today. Like this was the launch, so you all know this is the launch of the photography competition as well. And like Edwin has already, Mr. Edwin has mentioned already, so this has 12 photographs will also be published in our annual calendar, which we have been doing it for the past 3 years now. It's, I mean, the launch has, we had it since 2019. And also this would definitely mean to feature your photographs on the social media pages of every, of every partners that we have. And also, we will have the winners also who will be, they'll get a chance to be felicitated during the World Sustainable Development Summit, that is called the WSDS. And so that's an annual flagship event where all the, we have dignitaries from in the field of, sustainable development that come in, and, that would be a, in fact, opportunity for you all, a platform for you all to network with everyone around, and also, to voice your opinions on it. So yeah, another, besides the photography competition, we also have the Youth Climate Conclave that we all keep talking about. And, like how we talk about we focus on network and how we, prioritize youth. So one example I would give is Mr. Ashraf, who is sitting here. So next time we would want you all who is here with us as an attendance, as an attendee, we would want you all also to come and, be one of the speakers maybe in the future. So yeah, we would really, we stand true to the name Youth Climate Conclave. So yes, this is for the youth, and this is on climate action and on, sustainable lifestyle. So yes, I would, as a request, I would, ask everyone to kindly, participate in the competition and also spread the message. Like social media, one of the things that you can, focus on, or you can do from your end, or to create a network also is, you can just whatever, we have all our social media pages, the partners, we already have our social media pages. So we keep on tweeting, we keep on, posting. So maybe you can also retweet or, repost all the, posts that we do. So yes, with this, thank you all, everyone, for coming here, for joining us today. And we will continue this, this network. This is just the launch. We have it till the, till February 2023. So we will be in touch with you all. We have your email IDs, but if someone or if any one of you have not registered, please do that at the registration counter so that we can have your email IDs and we can forward all the, information that we have from our end. And once again, thank you to all the, partners that we have. Yes, thank you to all the partners. And yes, also we have high tea placed outside. And please, before leaving the, venue, there's just outside the registration counter. And also, if you have not, no, I'm sure you have noticed, but the panel that we have, that's the photography exhibition. And that's the, that is kind of a display and display for the winners that we had over the past 3 years, from first edition to third edition. So we had, this 19 photographs would be from actually maybe 2000 entries from the photography competition for all the 2 categories. Okay, so next time, we would have our exhibition, photography exhibition for the winning photographs this time as well. So next time we would want your photos to be seen at the panel. So thank you everyone, and please have some tea over there. Thank you.